sweeteners, GMOs, salt, MSG, and gluten, unless you have celiac. All nice and safe. Okay. So what matters really is just your overall diet. Always think big picture. Don't stress over single meals or single ingredients. Remember, what you eat today doesn't really matter. Some red flags to watch for on labels when you're shopping. Of course, watch out for organic. They're trying to scare you into spending more. Natural, GMO-free, gluten-free unless you have celiac. And the Quack Miranda warning. Most of you probably know the Quack Miranda warning, but for your edification, it is, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. For the most part, when you see that on a product, just don't buy it. Again, the exception is if your doctor specifically tells you to get it. There are products that you can take under medical instruction that have this warning on it. But for the most part, unless you've been told by your doctor to get it, if you see that on something, just put it back on the shelf. I said we were going to talk about supplements. Supplement industry is really a piece of work. When you buy supplements that have that warning on them, you are getting an unknown dose of an untested ingredient at an unknown purity with unknown contaminants that has not been shown to work and may not even be in the bottle. They've found lots of cases where it's just not even there. So red flags to look for on supplement packages. If it says it boosts the immune system, that's not really a thing unless you mean vaccines. Supports something. That's a claim they can get away with. Clinically proven to. No, you don't clinically prove anything really. And then also watch for the Quack Miranda warning. Okay, let's save a little money. There are no nutritional advantages to buying organic food. There just aren't. There's nothing inherently wrong with organic food. It's all fine food, except for its rather poor environmental impacts. But the food itself is okay. It just tends to be 2 to 3 times more expensive. So if you have the option to buy the non-organic version, do that. Save a lot of money. You don't need to buy supplements, again, unless your doctor tells you to. You don't need vitamin supplements. If you get enough variety in your diet, it's very unlikely you'll need a vitamin. Again, your doctor may tell you to treat a diagnosed deficiency or condition. Other than that, at the best, it's a waste of money that gives you expensive pee. And at the worst, too much of some vitamins can actually be harmful because they do accumulate. Megadoses of vitamins don't help with anything. Another potential exception, though, is if you eat vegan, you want to make sure you are not deficient on vitamin B12. So it's okay to eat vegan, but do make sure you get enough B12. You can skip buying probiotics. This is a really funny one because there's a lot of exciting science going on right now about our microbiome in our gut. A lot of interesting things are likely to be found soon. But there's currently no evidence that any probiotic supplements do anything, or really that many of them survive the trip through the acid vat that is your stomach. So it's harmless if it's there. I mean, if you eat yogurt, you're going to get some probiotics, whether you want it or not. Harmless, but you don't need them. Okay, on to the big thing around which there's a lot of anxiety and misinformation, which is weight loss. Pardon me. I'm going to tell you there are exactly 2 ways to lose weight. Surgery, paying someone to cut it out of you, or a sustained calorie deficit. That's the end of the list. So everything you need to know about weight loss diets is that diets don't work. I will flat out say weight loss diets don't work. That's because temporary efforts don't yield long-term results. So never go on a diet. That's diet as a verb, like don't diet, right? This means a number of interesting things. One is that there is no such thing as a fattening food. There are no weight loss foods. Nothing you can ingest burns fat. It's another thing you can watch out for in marketing. Long-term calorie balance is the entire game when it comes to weight. The diet and wellness industries, again, there's that word wellness, they mostly target women, but they're happy to take everybody's money. They're pretty predatory. All weight loss products and programs are scams. You can really just treat them that way. The few weight loss drugs that might work, and it's still kind of iffy, only help to maintain that calorie deficit. There's no other magic that they're doing. And if they're available prescription only. So there are no valid, worthwhile over-the-counter diet drugs. You can skip those. And the people who sell these and run these programs, they know that diets don't work, and that's good for repeat business. So they're not going to tell you that it doesn't work because they know you're just going to cycle through. So the way to eat is to think about variety. A fun way to gamify this is eat as many different species as you can. Just see how many you can have. If you go through the store looking at the main ingredient on things and noting what the main species is, you'll notice that it's pretty easy to get a narrow diet. But if you get plenty of veggies and fruits, you're going to get more variety, and vice versa. So, for example, potato chips and French fries, they just count as potatoes. They're both fine to have in your diet, but they don't give you variety points, right? Don't think about how healthy a food is. Again, you can't really measure healthy. Just think about what proportion it should play in your diet. Can I have a lot of this month, or should I have this as a treat every now and then? So the real key is to just, like I said, think about the proportion of your overall diet. So how should you eat? Enjoy a variety of foods, mostly plants, including plenty of fruits and veggies, not too much, not too little. Or in other words, relax and enjoy your food. Available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and Audible, read by the author. And thank you very much.
Wow, that was great. I do have a bunch of licorice over here that I'm not going to talk about. I do like sweets. I really
have some.
Well, the problem is I'll try to eat it as a meal.
Don't do that very often, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. That was great. And boy, what a great mic you have there too. That sounded really good. Richard Soccer should have listened to that.
I'm glad it was worth all the money I spent on this thing.
Yeah. That sounds really, really good. I'm letting more people in the room here as we speak. So we have a few questions. Let's see where we are here.
All right.
Let me get to the top of the list here. Okay. This one was asked way early in the Q&A, so you may have answered it. It was from Glinda. She wants to know, when washing your produce for pesticides, is just water okay? Do we need some sort of cleaner? Is veggie wash a scam? And I did say wash.
Veggie wash. Yeah. I mean, water is pretty much all you need. A really good rinse. A veggie wash won't hurt. I sometimes, depending on the produce, I use a solution like 50-50 vinegar and water. You can spray it on things. That would be more like for strawberries and things that I want to use. That's more for bacterial things than pesticides. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next question is it fair to be concerned about farm worker exposure to pesticides, even if consumers don't have to worry about them? That's from Deborah.
Yeah, that's totally fair. It's outside the scope of the book. I'm just talking about your relationship with your food. There's specialized knowledge. Like I learned fairly recently that the pesticides used on organic bananas are less toxic to the people harvesting bananas than the regular,
Mhm.
but that takes some specialized knowledge, and I'm trying to stay really general.
Yeah, the points you made were a lot of great talking point. And how do I say, great, the way you summarized it was just really simple. Like, there's no such thing as junk. You were never a hamburger. They were just all easy
I
to
tried to make the book
understand, break
very
it down.
accessible.
And I think that's a
Yeah.
really great way of starting out. I'm sure there's probably extremes and so on at the end, but at that, it sounded really easy to understand. Okay, here's from Janine. I don't know if it's a question so much as organic may have a higher risk of contamination with E. coli and other bacteria because of production methods. Also uses more land for the same crop yield, so it's not good for the environment and pesticides. Is this the case? She said.
Yeah, that's true. Organic uses about 20% more land, so it's a really serious hit. The world, if you want the world to eat organic, you get to pick which billions you want to starve. It's kind of how it works.
Oh, ooh.
Yeah.
We're trying to have you were here
Yeah.
earlier, or were you here earlier for Linda Rosa's talk? And that was like the movement.
Just that.
It was
Yeah.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some organic is fine, but it does use more land. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, is this from, I'm not sure who this is from. There's a name at the top and there's a name at the bottom. There are vitamins and supplements that do meet FDA standards, but they are designed for patients. I think it's the people who have had surgery for their, had their stomach reduced. I think it's
Sure. Again, if the doctor says to take it, I know someone who was prescribed melatonin to help with their headaches, and the doctor was able to give a brand specific recommendation because she said, I know that this brand has the actual dose of melatonin it says on the label, right? So yeah, there's always that if the doctor says so, and I'm sure there are vitamins you would get in a hospital that it's not that vitamins are bad, it's just that you don't need to go buy multivitamins.
right. I know. My oncologist told me all I need is a vitamin D and a vitamin B complex, and he doesn't want me taking anything else, and you do what your doctor says. We only have a little bit more time. So what's the skinny? I like the way they use this word skinny on diet drinks. Are they harmful in the long term? Are they a good alternative to sugary sweets if they're calorie free?
They are not harmful. The only exception is if you have a very rare genetic condition, you want to avoid aspartame. Other than that, for the vast majority of people, they're completely harmless in the doses you're going to get, and an excellent alternative to sugar if you're trying to lower the sugar in your diet.
Okay. Maybe fill in, and just if you don't have a chance to eat something, maybe a quick drink that has a lot of that in it would probably fill a meal, I guess. It's better than not having nothing, right?
Well, they're non-nutritive. Diet drinks have essentially no calories, or so few calories that they don't count. So all you would get from them is hydration and nice flavor.
Okay, so here we go. As a toxicologist, biochemist, I see most of this is valid. I guess that's what you mean, is most of this is what you're saying. For example, but some things are not as valid. For example, saying French fries are not equivalent to eating potatoes. This is from Reed. But I think you were trying to be simplifying things.
Yeah, it's a valid point. I'm not saying they're equivalent. I'm saying that if you're playing the how many different species can I eat game, you don't get to count French fries and baked potatoes as separate species because they're mainly just potatoes. That's what I meant.
Okay, and fried foods, that kind of thing. French fries. I love French fries.
I mean, it would be, and you also, a hamburger and a steak wouldn't count as two different species. They're going to be one species, right? It's just really thinking about what the main ingredient of the food is if you're trying to get enough variety.
Oh, okay. One more. I'm going to sneak this last one in because it just snuck in here from Reed. What do you think about vitamin D for residents of cloudy areas at northern latitudes?
I'm not a doctor. If you live at one of those places and your doctor tells you to supplement with vitamin D, then go ahead and do it. Vitamin D has become kind of a cult. So
Mm.
watch out for that. There are people pushing vitamin D and claiming it can do all sorts of crazy things. You do need it. Most of us get plenty, but yeah, depending on where you live, that might be a different thing. And yes, Hawaiian pizza is just fine. Everyone enjoy the food you want.
I love pineapple on my
Yeah,
pepperoni pizza. Craig just said it was I could eat that. So if anybody has a problem with it, he said,
that's right. You have my permission.
letting you know I have this on tape too. So
Uh,
that's going to be
yeah,
really great. Well, thank you so much. This was really a good talk. I think I'm
my
going to have
pleasure.
to rewatch it again to get even more information and share this with some of my friends that are always on some sort of diet,
Well,
which is kind of scary. But it is. I mean, we go up and down and up and down, and it just doesn't seem healthy. And the way we even think about food, the way we use the words, like you said, I was saying junk, and the things we say, it's just, and it's so targeted at women, and we should end that. I mean, come on.
yeah,
It's not nice. It's not nice to do that to people. But anyway, thank you so much. I
my
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. And
Thanks for
everybody
having me.
check out his book. All right. Fantastic. Sorry, taking your permissions away from you there, Craig.
Oh no.
Oh no. And we have a new very purple person today, which is great because we need a little color at this moment in the day, because this is kind of going to be, we're getting down towards the end. We have our last two speakers are in the room, so to speak. And Allison is going to be talking about, Allison is a part of my GSOW, the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia project. She's going to be explaining that to you. I'm so excited that she was able to make it today, because we were kind of iffy that she thought she was going to be away. And she gave this talk at SkeptiCAMP, SkeptiCal. So she's going to kind of go over it again and talk about it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Allison's got is updated for us. So Allison, you're on. It's all you, all.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can. And I can see your slides.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been awesome today. I've caught a lot of the talks, and they're really, really so interesting and diverse. And Craig, that was fascinating. Thank you so much. Mine's yet again different from the previous ones. I'm taking a little bit more of an angle on like politics and stuff like that. So my name's Allison Long. I live in Western Maine. That's approximately where I am, in a little teeny tiny town. I used to be a high school English teacher, and that doesn't seem super relevant to this group, but I taught research as a big chunk of what I did with my students, and my big emphasis was sources, the credibility, currency, and accuracy of your sources. And they were so tired of hearing me talk about that all the time. But it really has informed my interest in doing this work also. In 2015, I left teaching to be a stay-at-home mom, and most of my socialization came on the computer. So I was actually kind of active in a statewide moms group, which, as you can imagine, was full of claims of pseudoscience and all kinds of things. And I was recruited out of that because of my strong advocacy for vaccines and science and listening to your doctor, to help on a referendum campaign, which I'll get into in more detail. So that's sort of how I got into pro-vaccine activism, and then which eventually led me to GSOW. So that's kind of an overview. So in spring of 2019, the Maine legislature passed a new law that eliminated religious and philosophical exemptions. This headline is a little bit misleading. It pertained to school, excuse me, like children's vaccination requirements for attending school. And our law actually rewrote it to pertain to all schools, anybody, private, public, colleges and universities, any vaccination requirements for any of those things. So, and this is the law as it is now. It talks about schools specifically. So within the 90-day window that they had, after the law was passed, and I was not involved with getting the law through initially, which, as you probably have seen around the country, is quite a feat. So the anti-vaxxers were livid, and they collected over 79,000 signatures. In Maine, you can do a people's referendum that way. I know different states are different, but they did everything, by the book. And by October, which was the deadline, according to the law, they had collected enough. And question 1 was born. And according to the law, it had to be on the next statewide election ballot, which was March of 2020. And that coincided with the presidential primary. Just that became an issue later. So we were off and running, and I joined right about then. I did a couple different things on the campaign. So Maine Families for Vaccines is the group that I worked with. It's a political action committee that ran the No on One campaign statewide. It's a great organization. They're just really, really great. So the first thing I did was I was on the social media. We called it the rapid response team. And we tried to keep an eye on comment sections, mostly on Facebook, which, as you can imagine, it was a giant undertaking. And we sort of tried to manipulate the algorithms, get our comments high up, boost each other's comments with conversation and things like that. Always sourcing, always making sure that we were hitting the talking points. The other thing that I did was I helped coordinate the statewide letters to the editor campaign, portion of the campaign. I helped people edit and come up with ideas. And I kind of kept an eye on what got published, and we had a big spreadsheet where we kept track of all that stuff. And then lawn signs, everyone was on the lawn sign team. I collected and distributed and also drilled some into the ground, and it was March in Maine. So we had long drill bits that we drilled through the ice and snow to get them in the ground. Our victory was overwhelming. 74% of the voters rejected the veto, so wanted to keep the law, eliminating the exemptions. It was very confusing, and that was a big push that we made, was to help people understand why it was no and all of this stuff. So it was a pretty awesome victory party, and it was pretty much everyone's last social event for going on 2 years now. It was like the weekend before everything shut down. And we became only the 4th state to eliminate religious and philosophical exemptions for kids' vaccine requirements. There are 6 states now, and you're welcome to hazard some guesses as to what they are in the chat if you want to. I can tell you during Q&A if you want which ones they are. So how did I get to this group all the way from Nowhereville, Western Maine? During the campaign, a lot of us joined some national Facebook groups dedicated to pushing back on vaccine misinformation. And so I was in Cicada, and a bunch of us were. And Cicada is the Community Immunity Champions and Defenders Association. And they kind of just pay attention around Facebook to like people who are getting harassed or misinformation stuff. And this post showed up in there, which says that the guerrilla skeptics are looking for volunteers to edit Wikipedia pages of anti-vax groups and personalities. And I was like, okay. So right there, I thought it was a pro-vaccine effort. Had no idea that there was so much else going on, and I've learned so much since then. But I emailed Susan. I was like, the post was in Cicada, and she was like, "What's Cicada?" And it was kind of funny. But so I reached out to Susan, and she just got me right in immediately, and we got to work. So I'll pause here if you are thinking about joining us or have more questions about joining us. This is one way to get a hold of, or 2 ways to get a hold of the team. And I'll have this again at the end of my little talk. So these were and are the draws of this team for me. And hopefully, if you're listening and wondering, they might be draws for you as well. The first one is something that Susan emphasizes a lot, which is that we're not like manipulating anything. We're not going around anything. Like Wikipedia's policies favor science and scientific evidence. So it's not a stretch to do this activism work on Wikipedia, which is really cool. Probably the biggest convincer for me, having just spent 4 months arguing in comment sections, was the reach of Wikipedia is so much greater than you're going to reach in, a local news comment section. The sixth, or it was at the time, the sixth most visited website in the world. And so, for example, this is my stat right now, as of today. The pages that I've edited for this project has over 462,000 page views. And like we say, not everybody's going to be digesting everything on the page when they click, but still, that's way more than I was getting arguing with the same 10 anti-vaxxers over here in my little corner of the US. So one example of one of my pages that has really been crazy was Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you guys know who he is. It's not really worth knowing who he is, but Susan threw out that he was in the news and I knew who he was. So I snapped up the page and it's had 384,000 page views since I edited it just about a year ago, it looks like. He gets, huge spikes whenever he's back in the news, but big COVID denier, big, like, I don't know why we're wearing masks kind of guy. He's really charming. So that was a big one. In the fall, I don't remember what day it was before the last time I did, or after the last time I did this presentation, the team reached 100 million views on Wikipedia, which is just so cool and so crazy. And I'm so humbled to have been a part of that number, even for just a year. Another draw of the project is just how many different ways you can contribute. Like, I love to rewrite pages, but I don't always have time or like focus enough to tackle that. So if I find a good source for something that I follow, I'll stick it, I'll go make sure it's in the page. That's what we call a backwards edit. I just keep an eye on my watch list, see if anybody has vandalized the Christiane Northrop page lately, more on that in a little bit. And then there's a whole section of people that do translation, which is so important and so cool because I don't even really speak that good English. So there's so many different ways that you can contribute on this team. The training as a teacher, I so appreciate also. This little comment from our training spreadsheet really kind of encapsulates what the attitude of the training, like Susan's just like, I'll kick you in the butt or whatever you need. I'll answer your question. And I asked 1,000 million questions and she was so patient with me. And it was just a light, fun learning experience. Wikipedia doesn't offer anything like this training. I can't imagine trying to learn how to edit Wikipedia without this training. Everything that they offer on the site is just complicated and specific. And this training has really, Susan explained to me, been refined by teachers and educators who've been on the team, like giving her feedback and making the training better. So it's really, really excellent. And then obviously the cabal, the team, I love making friends around the world and talking to people from other parts of the world because I'm in such a rural part of the world. And it's just, they're so supportive. Any question that you have, big or small, nobody pretends to know everything. Like everyone has questions, everyone learns from each other. It's a great, great supportive group of people to be part of. And it's cool. Sometimes I'll see something in the news and I'll say, oh, I hope their Wikipedia page is, up to snuff, and I don't have time to look at it. So I'll post it to the team and somebody will be like, oh yeah, I can do that, or I'll check that out. It's truly a team effort. So some things that the team is not, it's definitely not lonely, as I explained just a little bit ago. It's also not something that requires prior knowledge. So I had never even clicked off of the regular article page on Wikipedia before. So you'll get everything in training in a very logical way that builds on itself. So don't worry about that. And then it does take a little while to kind of get your groove and know what your projects are going to be. So it's not something overnight, but it's definitely self-paced, which is excellent. All right, so here's a little bit of what I've done in the last year. I'm right about at my year anniversary, a little past it, of getting on this team. So my interests are local politicians, pro and anti-science, pro-science candidates, so kind of building up people who are maybe going to replace the anti-vaxxers in the state legislature. And then we have a global anti-vax figure right here in Maine, and I will talk about her a little bit more, but I keep an eye on those pages. I also do a lot of racial justice work. So I like to write about Black scientists and activists, and then I've done a couple pages for racial justice organizations and movements. Here's a couple of the pages I've done. Quarantine is a COVID-19 South Korean strategy. It's really interesting. Linda Mead Tolan is a Black scientist. Stacey Brenner is a local senator in Maine who's very pro-science. And then Dave Thomas, I think was a member of this group or knows people in this group. And I rewrote his page also. This is one thing that I try to do. I will, if I see a meme on an anti-vax area, I kind of check it out and make sure that there's the right information. So I saw this meme about Julie Gerberding, and I went and rewrote her page. She's so fascinating. She's had so many different experiences, amazing scientist. And she's had quite a few page views since I did that. So that was really interesting. All right, so Adrienne, I'm gonna talk about you a little bit here. So this is Christiane Northrop. I don't know if anybody else has the pleasure, but she is one of the so-called disinformation dozen. She disseminates repulsive amounts of anti-vaccine information, among other things, all over the world. She has a huge following. And I was kind of keeping an eye. She didn't have a page, and we kind of got around, there was enough coverage, and Adrienne said, all right, I'll tackle this page. And one of my proudest moments in my work so far was when Christiane Northrop herself, in one of her nightly Great Awakening video addresses to all of her minions, she was really irritated that she had a Wikipedia page with all these lies on it. And I was like, this is pinnacle, this is great. One of my favorite things to do is make her life miserable, which is probably terrible, but, and I'll tell a quick story about that. I think I have time. So in April of 2020, now pause for a minute and think about what the world was going through in April of 2020. Maine Women's Magazine put her on the cover of their April issue. And it was a fluff interview, totally nothing about her insane anti-vaccine, anti-COVID is a hoax ideas. So my campaign friends and I, who keep a close eye on her, she was very involved with the referendum campaign and wanting to eliminate the new law. We got a hold of all the advertisers for Maine Women's Magazine and let them know about what her deal was. And Coffee by Design, which is an awesome coffee company in Portland, Maine, they pulled all their ads, and they made a public statement as to why they pulled all their ads. And it created this big kerfuffle, and the editor came after us, and it was pretty awesome. They didn't take back the issue or apologize or anything like that, but she definitely, I mean, she knew it was happening and it irritated her. So that was another little point. Anyway, so GSOW has 106 as of today vaccine pages tagged as having to do with vaccination. And the page views as of today are over almost 5 million, which is super awesome. Yeah, so that's my little corner of GSOW. I love doing the vaccine stuff. I do some other stuff too, but if you're interested, please reach out. Susan likes Facebook Messenger, and that's a little glimpse of what her profile looks like right now. So if you need to find her, but then there's the email and our team website also. So thank you very much for listening and being interested in the team, and come join us.
That was great. Oh, that was so fun. I forgot about the picture with the cracker on the head. That makes me laugh so much when I see that. I think, oh my gosh, there's a picture of me with a cracker on my head. That was so fun. I really enjoyed that you're talking. I'm so glad that you were able to do it again with updated numbers. What a difference. Oh my gosh. I was looking at that going, wow, look at how much different. We're over 100. I think we're at 105 million page views now. So we've had 5 million page views since he wrote this in
awesome. Wow.
September, something like that. Oh, I can't remember.
October. Yeah.
October.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So we only have a couple questions that I think that are here. So let's see. The first one is from Jim. He says, I'm a Wikipedia editor too, addicted for more than 10 years, and I haven't touched an anti-vax or a vax page yet. So what do you want to say about that?
I'm a little scared still of the big ones. I don't do a lot of edits, or I don't do a lot of rewrites on the big ones. I've kind of just done a lot of snooping around locally, and I'm not sure where this person's from, but I'm sure they have both pro and anti-science people looking at state offices, local offices, and start there. It's less intimidating. You won't get a lot of like edit warring. So yeah.
We don't have a lot of pushback on the anti-vax pages, except from fans of the anti-vaxxers, and they leave such obvious, I mean, it's so obvious when they put stuff in, like we'll say, you know, that they're an anti-vaxxer. We say it we do it correctly, is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. And they'll go in and they'll try to take it all out. And it's like, okay, mm-hmm. Well, let me just revert that. That was 10 seconds of work. You know, it's not like they're doing anything major to the article. I don't think they really understand the rules. I don't think they really get it.
No, most people don't know.
Yeah. So it's not so much pushback on the anti-vax pages. And a lot of the anti-vax pages, like for Robert Kennedy Jr. and things like that, have already been written to some extent. And so there's not that much to do. So we've just been working on the up and coming, but now they're very famous, like Del Bigtree and Christiane Northrop or Simone Gold.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, just awful. So our next question is for you is, oh gosh, I have to scroll up. Here it is. From Eric. He says, if anyone checks individual guerrilla skepticism work edits, in other words, who watches the watchers? Who's watching our edits?
Well, I mean, the rest of Wikipedia, you know, anybody can stick anybody can stick any page on their watch list. So I usually go in once every other day and just see like what kind of action's been happening on the pages that I watch. But Susan's not in there like checking out everything we do by any stretch. It's a very, Wikipedia is a very like, it's cool how it all shakes out, and you know, vandalism doesn't last long, and there's a lot more people on there that are dedicated to like the rules and policies than people that aren't. So,
and there are editors who are pro-science, who are often, if not fanatically, trying to trip us up to find us doing something wrong, and they make a big case out of, you know, something that's just slightly wrong or whatever, slightly worded weird. I don't know, whatever. And they just will go all over us. But anyway, what is the top GSOW vaccine page? Do you know? You were just looking at the vaccine.
Not off the top of my head. That's a great question.
How do they, I guess I could look really quick, hopefully. I'll sing a song. I'm a little teapot, short and
I can look at the
stout.
questions while you're doing it.
I'm looking now as it's loading, and it's there. And we have 106 pages. Yeah, you're absolutely up to date on that. That's perfect. 105 million. Okay, for in total. So the top of all the Wikipedia pages we've written. Oh, this is great. Of all the Wikipedia pages that we have written that are vaccine related, the number one viewed is at 441,000 is the 1976 swine flu outbreak. And that's because we wrote that page a long time ago. But I learned a lot about that. That was really interesting about, should they give the flu vaccine to people not knowing if we were going to end up having an outbreak? Because that could have been a pandemic, but
it wasn't as bad as everyone thought it would be. Yeah.
Huge amounts of money spent on that. It was very scary. So anybody want to look at that, 1976, but the Del Bigtree's next. We've also wrote America's Frontline Doctors.
Yes, that's right. That was pretty recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, 323,000 page views.
Wow, nice.
Simone Gold, Paul Offit, all kinds of stuff. Oh my gosh. But most currently, in the last week, the page that's gotten the most views at 11,000 views is Robert Malone. Do you remember who he is? I can't quite remember who he is. Is he the guy who thinks he invented RNA vaccines or something like that?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He's all over the news right now. Being just like everywhere. Somebody goes, oh my God, that guy. And when you put up the other one, when you put up the other question, you asked a question if anybody's heard of this person. Who was it? Was it Christian or somebody?
Dave Ramsey.
Oh yeah, Dave Ramsey. He held Christmas parties that are unmasked. No one's allowed to wear a mask near him. Just amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Is that all the wait? Here's something.
Oh, somebody knows him. Yep.
Portland, Oregon banned fluoridation. Idaho has been called Mississippi of the mountains, along with the deep south. Wyoming has very low vaccine rates. However, the far northeast has a high vaccine rate. What do you think is relatively unique about the culture and people in Maine?
That's an awesome question.
Ooh.
How much time do you have?
And that's
it's super diverse. So we have a very densely populated first congressional district around the city of Portland in southern Maine. And then the rest of the state is our second congressional district. And they're so different. And the second district is really interesting because it flip-flops between red and blue. It's very purple. I live in the second district. And it's politically fascinating, but yeah, I don't know. Our vaccine rate for COVID has been high also. I mean, I think people are mostly sensible, but as you probably know, like anti-vaxxers are just really loud. So I think the campaign that I was on was fantastic and just confident and played to people's strengths of just being logical and caring about our communities and caring about our kids. That was the slogan, was protect Maine's children. So yeah, that's what we kind of ask ourselves that all the time though.
That was a very strange, when you first joined GSOW and you were telling me about vaccine, the campaign, what was it called? Campaign 1? Question 1?
Ours was no on one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so confusing because it was no on something, but the no was to keep it. So it wasn't to
keep the new law.
It was just, I hate it when the media, whenever it's done that way. And it seems like that's done that way on purpose to confuse the voters.
Well, in Maine, the law is that if you have a referendum campaign, the wording on the ballot has to be exactly the same as the wording on the petition that people are signing. Mm-hmm. So the petition wording was like, do you want to overturn the new law? So we said, no, it's great.
Don't overturn the new law.
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's just, I've seen this in California.
But it's very confusing.
What were the other 6 states? I think California's one. that have,
California is one.
I remember that passing, and man, that was a big deal. Ted, no, what was
Yes.
his name?
Ted Lieu, right?
Ted Lieu. Yeah, he's a pediatrician. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, he had heinous things thrown at him on sidewalks. And
I would
yeah,
not be surprised. He's still happening. Wouldn't be shocked.
So Connecticut, Maine, New York, California, Mississippi, and West Virginia, which is surprising, but I've actually heard that West Virginia might be walking it back. So I'm not positive what their status is right now. But yeah, only 6 so far.
Which is the side? Joel says, what side appears to be making gains, pro-vax or anti-vax?
Now, I mean, before, so this was right up until COVID started. And so all the conversations we were having were about routine vaccines that have been around forever. And then we just launched directly into like this new ridiculousness. It's hard for me to say, like, I'm so entrenched in the pro side, but also like have had experiences with people that have been close to me who have been drawn in by the anti side. So I'd like to say that it's pro. I think most people approve of and support vaccines, but the anti-vaxxers are so persistent.
They're so loud. And I mean, yeah, absolutely. You're not seeing people going in and marching in and saying, we are going to wear masks. How dare you not let us? I mean, you're not seeing that kind of stuff. And it's not making the news too. And again, we got to sell newspapers. We got to get clicks on our articles. So we got to make it as big and as loud and as obnoxious. All we're doing is we're trying to keep just go forward. I mean, you guys got to remember when we started on these vaccine pages there was no COVID even slightly. We've been doing this for 10 years. So whenever we first started with the COVID lockdowns, I can remember having the conversation with everybody in the cabal. Hey, you guys, we really should concentrate on these vaccine things because I think it's going to be a big deal. We're going to get a vaccine in a few years. So I think we really need to get it happen a lot faster. We thought that was for sure, but let's get these things in order because people are going to want to know. And we've been doing it in other languages too. The pages that she was talking about, the 106, they're not all English. There's a lot of misinformation in languages outside of English. English is in pretty good shape compared to a lot of languages. It's really sad. So we have a lot of people on our team that are editing in languages other than English. 45% of the work we do is not in English. So that's pretty awesome. We're almost at 2,000 pages. So
oh, I gotta get on that.
I know we're getting 1968 or something like that. It's
cool.
really getting close. So I'm wondering who's going to hit the 2000th mark. All right, Allison, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was great.
Yeah, great seeing you here, and I love your hair. I think it looks fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so how do I do that? There she goes. Okay, so we have one more talk. This is also a current talk, but before I get to that, I just want to mention real quickly, if you're having a good time, you're enjoying the show and you think this is a valuable that we're doing, please consider making a nice donation to our nonprofit, which is called About Time. You can also subscribe to us on Amazon Smiles, which will give you a small donation of your sale. So you don't pay for it. It's all that Amazon, and Amazon's okay with could get rid of some of their cash on hand, and the small percentage of it will go to our will go to the nonprofit that you say that you wanted to go to. So never purchase anything off of Amazon unless you have some kind of nonprofit that is receiving some kind of money. I think the anti-vax group, Robert Kennedy's, I think they got $42,000, I think last year from Amazon Smiles, believe it or not, because people have been using that as their nonprofit. Their group is called something that looks totally innocuous, and like Children's Health Freedom or something. I can't remember, but a lot of people will be taken in by the name that think it might is a pro-vax group. So Bezos is going to help us out with a little bit of donation. So that's Amazon Smiles. And I've just given you the link to our donate button on PayPal. Thank you to those few people who have already given a donation. We really appreciate it. It really makes a big difference. Not only does it keep me wanting to do more events like these kinds of things, but it's going to help out in the long run. And it supports a lot of people in a lot of places. So I appreciate that. So our next speaker is going to be our last speaker of the day. And we're running pretty much on time. Just a couple, I'm going a couple minutes long because I can, and we're at the end and we've done so good the whole day. Now this is going to be JD Sword, and he's one of the people you should be watching for because he's getting his name out there, and he's starting to do a lot more in just, I'm running across him and his work a lot more often. And I think he's going to talk about himself, so I'm not going to talk too much about him. But JD Sword gave a talk for SkeptiCAMP this last fall, but it was on Operation Onion Ring, because he was one of the participants in helping making that work. So JD's going to be talking about something completely different. So I don't know what this is really. It's about the Satanic Panic, which is going to be fun. So wait. I have my Satan devil hat that people have actually been loving this as I wear it around town. They've been stopping me and telling me how much they adore my hat. So I have to put my devil's hat on to listen to JD's talk. So is JD pinned over here or about to be?
Yeah,
pinned?
no, you have to make him a co-host before I can pin him.
Oh, well, fine. That means I have to look at my little list again. Oh, gee, I've been so good all day. Oh, I've got to go to gallery. That's what my problem is. Okay. Ooh, look at all these people. Open the doors and there's all the people. And JD, where are you on this massive wall of people? There's Craig. There's Brian. Okay. There he is. Okay, make co-host. I love this Zoom. I didn't even know what it was at the beginning, but now I'm learning so much about these things. Okay. JD was making dinner with his kid.
He needs to turn on his camera before I can spotlight him too.
Oh yeah, you got to turn the camera. He's a good dad.
There we go. Thanks, JD.
Making dinner and you know, he's on the East Coast, so he kind of got confused about the time.
Oops, wrong person.
There you are.
Sorry, Deborah.
Deborah, gosh, I'm really hungry now. Craig's talk really made me want to go get something good to eat.
There we go.
All right, so if you want to, is he spotlighted? No, I've got to go on. I've got to go on that speaker view. There you are. It's so good to see you. Okay, so you ready?
I'm ready.
You're our closer. How does that feel?
Good.
Okay, I'm going to disappear. You go ahead and you have your little, and I'll be right here. Remove me.
Where is? There we go. That's better. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out to listen to me speak. Tonight, I'd like to start by introducing myself briefly. So my name is JD Sword. I'm the host of the podcast, The Devil in the Details, where I talk about topics of interest to both skeptics and Satanists. So a lot of exorcism, demonic possession, the Satanic Panic, which of course we'll be talking about tonight. I'm a writer for Skeptical Inquirer. I've done articles about Katharine Hepburn's haunted house, demonic text messages, demonic possessed cats, a live exorcism by the one and only Bob Larson. I write for AIPT Comics. I give skeptical analysis of movies like The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and TV series like Fall River and The Sons of Sam. I'm a member for the Center for Inquiry, the Guerrilla Skeptics of Wikipedia, like Susan mentioned, and the Church of Satan, although tonight I'm not going to be speaking on behalf of the Church of Satan. So today I'd like to talk about the belief, a very dangerous belief, that A highly organized and clandestine cabal of devil worshippers are trafficking children across the country, and whose members occupy the highest echelons of power. And that definition applies equally as well to the Satanic Panic as it does to QAnon. And the reason for that, I will argue, is very simple, because they're the same thing. According to a recent poll by the Public Religion Research Center, roughly 14% of Americans, that's 30 million people, fall into the category of QAnon believer. That's as many as all white evangelical or mainline Protestants. And it's not just people on the lunatic fringe. 36 congressional candidates for the 2022 midterm election, that's this year, have expressed some level of support for QAnon ideas, a very dangerous set of beliefs which have inspired real-world violence. From the member of the Gambino crime boss, Frankie Cali, who was murdered for being a member of the deep state, to Matt Coleman, who murdered his 10-month-old and 2-year-old because he believed they had reptile DNA. QAnon is something that neither skeptics nor Satanists, can take too seriously. And as such, we need to begin by understanding where it came from. How did we get to this point? So accusations of ritual child sacrifice and cannibalism are nothing new in Christianity. The Romans accused the early Christians of the same. Rival Christian sects accused one another. Throughout the Middle Ages and the more than 200-year history of witch trials and heretic trials, people were hung or burned at the stake for such crimes. But for our purposes, we're going to start with the Satanic Panic of the 1980s and the 90s. So what was that? How did it begin? In a nutshell, the Satanic Panic was like QAnon, but on a much wider scale. You had police officers, social workers, psychiatrists, all believed this idea that these devil-worshipping cults were real and killing millions of children every year. And the public came to believe this because the idea was validated and disseminated through TV talk show hosts like Oprah, Sally Jesse Raphael, and of course, Geraldo Rivera. So how did that all start? So let's begin with the 1960s. There was a tremendous change in the cultural landscape, along with interest in mind-altering drugs and the sexual liberation. There was an explosion of interest in alternative religious practices, the occult, parapsychology, astrology, what was called Eastern mysticism. And as a response to that, we saw not only the birth of the modern skeptic movement, but also the founding of the Church of Satan in 1966 by this man, Anton Szandor LaVey. Satanism, as codified by Anton LaVey, was and always has been atheistic and law-abiding. It holds both animals and children in the highest regard as the purest forms of carnal existence. Nevertheless, the prejudice persists that Satanists are lurking around every corner, looking to snatch up your children. And part of the reason for this was that Christian evangelicals at the time really believed that they were living during the end times, that their Christian way of life was being threatened and undermined by secularism. Part of that response was to try to use the medium of entertainment to spread the gospel and call people back to the church. So these two movies, Rosemary's Baby, which was released in 1968, and The Exorcist, which was released in 1973, really scared the hell out of people, or rather into them. It really brought people kind of back into the fold. But then you also saw an industry of so-called ex-Satanists crop up, folks like Mike Warnke, America's #1 Christian comedian. And Warnke made millions talking about his time as an alleged satanic high priest, starting with his 1972 book, The Satan Seller, and throughout his comedy act. Now, Christian comedy, you might think that sounds like good, clean fun for the whole family. But Warnke's act was he would intersperse lurid tales of his time as a satanic high priest throughout his jokes. So then in 1980, the book Michelle Remembers was published, purporting to be a memoir of Michelle Smith as she recovered repressed memories of childhood abuse at the hands of devil worshippers under hypnosis by her therapist and future husband, Lawrence Pastor. And Michelle Remembers really kickstarted the Satanic Panic proper and would go on to become the blueprint by which future cases of satanic ritual abuse, which is a term that Lawrence Pastor made up, would be evaluated. And even though Michelle tended to kind of avoid the limelight, Pastor, on the other hand, would go on to travel the country and give talks to law enforcement. He was part of this group called the Cult Crime Impact Network, which would kind of go around and lecture to law enforcement and kind of push this narrative of cult crime and what to look for. Both Pastor and Warnke would go on to appear on primetime TV. They were on the 2020 program called the ABC program 2020 in an episode called The Devil Worshippers. And Pastor, of course, would later go on to be a consultant for probably the most infamous court case to come out of the Satanic Panic, the McMartin trial. Now, you might think that if it were really true that millions of children were being killed every year, as believers of these in these cults claimed, at least some evidence of these crimes would probably be found. If satanic ritual abuse survivors like Michelle Smith and ex-Satanist high priest Mike Warnke were coming forward with the truth, you might believe that at least some of these cultists ought to have been accused, if not brought to justice, right? Wrong. In fact, the absence of evidence was actually taken to be proof as to how powerful and influential these cults were. Apparently, they could destroy any and all forensic evidence, but they just couldn't shut up a 6-year-old girl and a Christian comedian. And what kind of evidence was presented as proof of these cultists, you might ask? Well, virtually any piece of graffiti depicting an upside-down cross or a pentagram was interpreted as being proof that cults were operating in the area. And the second most pervasive piece of evidence of defective detective work was animal mutilations. In the 70s, there was this panic in the Midwest over livestock deaths. Farmers would find their livestock supposedly drained of blood with marks that were made with allegedly surgical precision. And in the 70s, they were blamed on aliens and UFO abductions. Well, during the Satanic Panic, the blame shifted to cultists. And in each case where proper investigations were performed by qualified professionals, the marks on the body were found to be consistent with natural predation and scavenging. But what about the recovered memories of satanic ritual abuse? Can memories of childhood abuse really be repressed, then recovered years, even decades later? Now, this is a very controversial topic. Memory researchers and psychologists such as Elizabeth Loftus say no. Our best current understanding of how memory works is not compatible with repression. There's no explanatory mechanism that's currently accepted. It's much more likely that alleged repressed memories of childhood abuse are what are known as false or pseudo-memories. Even so, psychiatrists and repressed memory advocates continue to insist that memories recovered during therapy are genuine, and some subset of them continue to believe that satanic cults do in fact exist. How did skeptics and Satanists respond to this back then? And what can we do moving forward today with QAnon? Well, representatives of the Church of Satan appeared on various TV talk shows at the time, like Sally Jesse Raphael, dispelling myths about Satanism, and the administration consulted with and continues to this day to consult with law enforcement on cases of alleged cult crime. They also consulted with the Committee for the Scientific Examination of Religion when they published their report, Satanism in America, in 1989, at the height of the Satanic Panic. Anton LaVey would grant interviews occasionally. He was very selective of who he spoke to, though. One of the more important interviews at the time was to investigative journalists John Trott and Mike Hertenstein, who were ultimately the ones who published the expose article that outed Mike Warnke as a fraud. So one of Warnke's many claims was that he had flown to San Francisco in this satanic meet and greet where he met Anton LaVey. Excuse me. And Trott and Hertenstein, to their credit, actually interviewed Anton LaVey, and he set the record straight, saying in no uncertain terms, the idea that I called a meeting in San Francisco, or if I had, that I would have invited him is absolute bunk. There's no way I would have had any dealings with Warnke. Another example of direct action was a lawsuit filed by Anton LaVey against Pazder and the various publishing and distribution companies responsible for Michelle Remembers, claiming that the book was defamatory. While the lawsuit did nothing to stop the sale of the book or undo the damage that the book would cause, it did, however, squash a movie deal that was in the works at the time. So much the better. Finally, in 1992, FBI Special Advisory Agent Kenneth Lanning published his Investigator's Guide to Allegations of Ritual Child Abuse, in which he concluded absolutely no evidence to support that satanic cults exist. Which brings us to today. A lot of people point to Pizzagate in 2016 as the birth of QAnon, but the same kind of fears and conspiratorial delusions that fueled the Satanic Panic drive QAnon today. The difference is that the ideas no longer need to be validated or disseminated by the mainstream media because the ways in which people are exposed to information is vastly different. It's much, much easier in the age of algorithms to be led down the rabbit hole. And the general public already believes that by passively consuming suggested videos or reading tweets that they're doing their own research. So what exactly can we do about this? And, you know, the kind of true crime model TV shows that I've talked about for AIPT comics and stuff, you know, they also don't help. First, I think that we need to get serious about it. It doesn't matter how silly or ridiculous or inconsequential something is. No claims should go unchallenged. What we as skeptics think is dumb could be what starts someone down the path of QAnon. So, you know, the two TV series here, Fall River and Sons of Sam, you know, by no means were they huge hits. I think maybe Sons of Sam was trending on Netflix for maybe about a week, but you know, ultimately it wasn't really anything to write home about. But that's not to say that some people might not watch that and think, you know, oh wow, that was really compelling, or I didn't know that. And you know, that could be all it takes to kind of lead them down the rabbit hole. Another great example is Emma Romero, PhD grad student at the University of California, just published an article in the first Skeptical Inquirer volume of this year discussing the current state of satanic ritual abuse. So yes, despite undergoing a name change and a facelift, it's still an idea, a set of ideas that's very much alive and well today. And QAnon simply isn't going to go away. Those of us who advocate for a scientific worldview and critical thinking, I personally believe, must defend and promote those now more than ever. The hardcore believers of QAnon might be set in their belief, but hopefully some people are not too far gone and they can be reasoned with. And you know, I'll be honest, this is not an area that I'm particularly good at. I think it's important. I think it needs to happen, but like with anti-vaxxers and COVID deniers, personally, I'm to the point where I'm like, you know, okay, just get away from me. I don't even want to talk to you. But you know, it's important. It's a dialogue that needs to happen, and someone who does do an excellent job talking with conspiracy theorists, and whom I think we could all learn a lot from, is the author of Escaping the Rabbit Hole, Mick West. I highly recommend his book to anybody who, you know, is interested in how people come to believe in conspiracy theories, and, you know, how to carry on a dialogue with them. And if we want our ideas to be heard, you know, we need to understand how to talk with people instead of talking down to them, because nobody wants to be condescended to. It's like my friend Kenny Biddle always says, you know, listen to Patrick Swayze, be nice. So it's my hope that together we can conjure the devil of doubt to come forth and call mankind to challenge all things and question all things. with the Luciferian light of reason to guide our way ever forward through these times, because, you know, QAnon, it's not going to go away. You know, here we are, we've had a change of guard and they're still going strong. It's kind of like the Millerites, you know, some people have drifted away, others, they're going to carry on until who knows when. So if anybody wants to learn more about the Satanic Panic or QAnon or any of the other topics that I've mentioned, you can find my podcast, The Devil in the Details, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can read my articles for a Skeptical Inquirer at skepticalinquirer.org, or, you know, go grab yourself a physical copy. The November-December issue, I talked about the true case behind The Exorcist. And Ben Redford and Kenny Biddle did an excellent examination of the true story behind another film, The Entity. You can read my articles for AIPT Comics at aiptcomics.com. And I've made appearances on Kenny Biddle's Skeptical Help Bar on his YouTube channel, I Am Kenny Biddle, and the YouTube channel that he co-hosts, Three Tortured Souls, as well as another satanic podcast similar to mine, The Demented One. So with that, thank you all very much for your time and attention, and I wish you all well.
Fantastic. What a good speaker. Just great. Nice way to end the series with a nice upbeat talk on Satanism. But actually, it was very positive. It was very positive. I really like that. Let me get me to, there I am. Oh, look, I am cutting off my horns, Susan. Here, hold on.
I love that hat. I love that hat. It's so cute.
I've been wearing it all for months, and I'm not kidding. People will come out and they will talk to me and say, "Hey, I love your hat. That's so great. I might wear something like that." I'm thinking, well, go ahead. I think it's great.
Well, it looks very warm. I think I could use it.
Oh, it is very warm. Yeah. Well, you're colder in a colder place than I am. Okay, let's see what questions we have. So, although the Church of Satan may support rational, constructive ideas, is it a good or bad example of bad marketing or being self-defeating? I mean, no offense, but would you not agree that a group that associates itself with Satan would likely turn away people who might be sympathetic to the skeptic cause?
So I just kind of had a similar talk about that, because there's a group, and I'm not gonna name who they are, but purportedly they offer services to people who have been accused of satanic ritual abuse. I guess in terms of, you know, counseling or understanding what their legal rights and everything are. And, you know, my whole thing was maybe there's not other groups that do that currently. I know there used to be one, I think it was called like the False Memory Association or something like that. But I think the group ended up and folded. But my whole thing is, if you are allegedly part of this conspiracy, if people think that you are to blame, it seems like a bad idea to put yourself out there trying to help somebody's cause, you know, while kind of beating the drum. So, you know, maybe in a sense, some people might be turned away from skepticism, you know, because they kind of see the branding that I have. And, you know, that's fine. With things like satanic ritual abuse and false memory, I would never kind of put myself out there with, you know, I would never involve myself in somebody's particular case, you know, because it, you know, it very well might hurt them. I think, however, some people might kind of see what I see, in the sense that, you know, if a certain kind of religious mentality is closed-minded and detrimental to science, you know, and the idea is that you're supposed to take things on faith and not question, then having that kind of belief and reason and the element of doubt is something that's satanic. So I think some people, might appreciate that and pick up on it. And it speaks to skepticism in a way that other people don't pick up on. For example, with the Church of Satan, ritual magic is an undeniable part of the religion. Anton LaVey believed in and practiced magic. And that's not to say that as an individual Satanist, you have to, but you can't pretend that it's not part of the canon and it's not part of the history. And I think some Satanists have an idea of skeptics as, well, those are the people that they just want to debunk everything. They don't believe in it. They're not willing to even kind of examine the evidence for it. They think it's bullshit. They think that we're crazy, we're stupid, and that kind of turns them off. So what I hope to do is kind of present sort of a different flavor of skepticism and kind of bridge the gap between. So I think that was a very rambly kind of answer, but I hope it addressed.
Well, I have an answer too to follow up on that, JD. Is I don't know if anybody remembers Penn and Teller Bullshit, the show that played on Showtime. And years ago when that came out, gosh, it's been years ago, we used to have a forum at the JREF where it was before Facebook, where we could actually talk to each other, kind of like, we could gather. And so there was a huge community. People would say, what brought you to skepticism? And a large chunk of people said they had seen Bullshit, the Penn and Teller show. And that brought them to the forum and to skepticism and things. And I thought, I hate that, the TNA, I just couldn't stand it. And the use of profanity. And I just didn't like the personality. I like Teller a lot, but he never really says anything. But I really like the person. I liked the message they were doing. Sometimes it got a little simplistic, but I really wasn't into it. But so many people told me, I loved that. That was great. They were just right out there in your face telling you this. And I got a lot out of it. And I liked the TNA and all that. And I thought, and the consensus within the discussions we were having is it takes all kinds of places, all kinds of areas of people doing it in a different way. Maybe this satanic Satanism might not be the way, but maybe this other area is, and to pull it all in, whatever it is that draws people in and getting to become critical thinkers. Do you want to talk about the After School Satan program? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I know what the acronym spells. I don't particularly.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. I mean, it has no affiliation with the Church of Satan. I have my personal opinion on it. If that's what people are asking for. No,
I was the GSOW project wrote the After School Satan project right as it was kind of just hitting the news just at the very beginning, and it's already had 184,000 views. So it was made because the Good News Society, which is that very Christian after school program that is very dangerous to children. I mean, it teaches hellfire and just this awful world. But I think the After School Satan teaches like a non-bully, just kind of a science, pro-science kind of thing. But you could talk a little bit about some of the Satanist things that they do too, because I've seen some amazing things that the Church of Satan has done.
Well, I mean, After School Satan, that was not actually the Church of Satan.
No, it's not. It's something else, but it's
I mean,
same idea as a messaging.
I mean, as far as, I don't think religion has any place in schools. And I think that there's other organizations and clubs that already do a very fine, commendable job of teaching science and advocating for science in schools.
Mm-hmm. When I read a lot of the Hemant Mehta's posts on, he used to be posting on Pathos, the Friendly Atheist, and he talks a lot about what's happening in religion. And it was post after post where, some religion in the South or wherever the Bible Belt was trying to push through something, a tablet, one of those 10 Commandment tablets, or whenever they're going to put, they were handing out Bibles or whatever. It always came down to, all right, call in the Satanists, because that was the ultimate answer. Whatever you couldn't get them to stop pushing whatever religious thing was going on, the Satanists were like, okay, well, if you're asked, if it's okay for this religion to do it, then it's okay for us. We're going to put up our, what's his name, Bo?
The Baphomet.
Yeah, Baphomet statue right next to the 10 Commandment one. No problem. Thanks.
Yeah. And
shut things down. They were like, "Ooh."
Well, I'm not very well versed on that, but I don't believe that it was the statue that kind of brought an end to that. And
the threat of a statue, I thought
it doesn't always work. I mean, then you just end up with one more religious icon.
I don't think they've ever been able to get one up into state.
Putting up a state house,
but it's pulled down a lot of other stuff. So I got a question from Jeff. He says, with the understanding that adherents are not a monolith and that there are multiple organizations in play, how much of modern Satanism do you reckon is earnest and how much of it amounts to a cosplay? Like my hat.
Oh, I mean, I think that depends on, a lot of different things. That kind of depends on the individual. Some people, I think, definitely want to play it being a Satanist because they want to just get a rise out of Christians, or, maybe they have a certain idea about what that means. And other people, we always say that Satanists are born, not made. That was something that Anton LaVey very much believed in. And, I think that's kind of how you can tell, who's really sincere about it. Somebody who will tell you, yeah, I read the Satanic Bible and it was kind of like looking in a mirror. It was like, wow. So, that's kind of putting an identity on how I've always felt and, who I've always been.
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, all areas are needed. And if this didn't work for the one, that's fine. It reaches out to another personality somewhere else that this is like the best thing that they've ever had. I think it's great. I think we should embrace all kinds of avenues. And I think it's fun. I'm not a member of the church, but then I'm not a member of any churches, and I don't even really participate much in the other the satirical group, the noodly appendage, the flying spaghetti monster. I think it's funny, but that's not my, I will, but I'm really not so much into the atheist community as some people are. I'm more into the scientific skepticism stuff because I like that kind of stuff too. But I'm hearing lots of comments about what a great talk you did. Great slide presentation too. I'm going to send my stuff to you because I'm going to have you do my slides, yours or Adrian. Yeah. And the question, the Satanic Temple is strictly atheist, isn't it?
Yes, as well as the Church of Satan.
As well as the Church of Satan. Yeah, which is, and I think anytime you're having a conversation with somebody too, right? If you can have a conversation and not angry and yelling at you, if people see your medallion and they want to have a reasonable talk or whatever, if you can talk to them and give me your elevator pitch for like one floor, JD. Like if you're in an elevator with somebody and they see your medallion, you got one floor, what is it you're going to say? They're going to go, isn't that the satanic thing or whatever?
Well, typically, it would depend on where I was as to whether or not I, would be presenting it. What's more, is it more prudent for me to kind of tuck it, hide it, or do I feel comfortable enough that no one's going to bother me? I mean, if somebody asked, and some people have noticed and found out, I would say, yes, it is, and kind of just leave it at that. If they have questions, I would address the questions as they come.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with the skeptics, I guess, too. People are constantly trying to get us to change our name to something else, what, the Brights or something. I don't know what they want to do, but it's like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, but skeptics are like skeptics of climate change. It's like, we're not going to find a better word. We're already skeptics. Let's just embrace the damn thing. And it's a chance of having a conversation with a person, because that's almost the first thing out of my mouth is, yes, we are skeptics. We are critical thinkers. We're not anti-vax, anti-climate change, we are following the science on things. And so, and then depending on their answer and the look on their face, if it looks startled or they're nodding or they're smiling, then maybe you would give them a little more information, or how many elevator stops you got to go.
That's one of the things, people will sometimes ask is, well, why the name Satanism, or, why the name Church of Satan? Isn't it just essentially humanism? Why couldn't it be something that's more welcoming or friendly? And it's like, well, because we don't necessarily want to be welcoming and friendly. We don't want everybody to kind of come in under the tent flaps. If somebody finds it as a sticking point, then that's kind of on them, and they can approach as they feel comfortable. But the people that see it and they are intrigued, or they see it and they get it, those are the kind of people that I think you're more likely to have a productive conversation with.
Absolutely. So I want to end this by saying that if anybody is interested, he gave you a whole bunch of different sites, the things that you could look and find more on JD. But he writes a column for Skeptical Inquirer magazine, and this is the latest. It's in this issue right here.
Thank you. I didn't have my copy on.
I had mine handy. And Celestia Ward, a very good friend of ours, designed this cover, which is amazing. But the latest issue is this one. I just got it and I've been sitting down reading it. But JD does a column not only in print in the magazine, but you can find his column for Skeptical Inquirer on the websites, Skeptical Inquirer .org. And you can pull those up, and they're very well written, just like the presentation you just saw. It's just orderly, factual, follows the citations, and they go, but his latest one that he did in this magazine was about the boy, and it was a boy, not a girl, that was in The Exorcist, and who that person actually is or was, and the story behind it, and how they got outed as to who they were. But it was an actual story that was real. It really was a child who supposedly had been possessed by a demon and so on. Sadly, he's dead, right?
Yes, he died last year.
Yeah, so it's a great story. I didn't know it before, and I think you just did something on the. Did you just do something on Amityville Horror? I know Kenny was talking about. No, it was Exorcist.
Yeah.
You were doing The Exorcist, I believe, right? I have never seen that movie all the way through. I'm sorry to say. We need to have an exorcism party.
I was gonna say, I'm honestly not a fan. Like, there's parts that I enjoy, but I don't know. I just can't find it scary, and
it was the 70s. It was terrifying in the 70s. I was 17. I wasn't allowed to go, so I never saw it because it was in the theaters. And I remember reading years later, whenever people were talking about demonic possession and how these people are levitating from the bed, and the priests and the people in the room would be yelling, "Hold her down!" And then the scientists are all, "Let her go! Let's see what happens. Will she float to the ceiling?"
Yeah, I don't know. And I at one point in time legitimately believed that demons were real, and I don't know. I just never found it
interesting.
Never found it scary.
Yeah.
I like the quote from Beetlejuice where he says he's seen it, like, I forget what it is, and my wife's gonna kill me if she knows I didn't get it right, but he's seen it like 67 times or whatever, and it keeps getting funnier every time he sees it.
Oh, a movie?
Yeah. It's a quote from Beetlejuice. He says,
somebody will know the answer really quick in the next 30 seconds. How much you want to bet?
Yeah, I can't get the number right.
Oh, Linda Rosa said she saw The Exorcist in Ecuador and people ran screaming from the theater.
I mean, at the time it came out, they talked about people fainting in the theater, and
How much of that was a promo though to get people?
Right. I think they even said something about like women were having miscarriages in the
I
theater.
remember that. I remember that. Women were having, well, what a great marketing campaign. My God. The IV seems highly realistic. Yes.
That was
Okay.
a real fun fact. That was a real IV. That's why it was highly realistic.
Oh,
And if I remember,
what?
Sorry, the movie is, I've seen it 167 times and it
Yes.
keeps getting funnier every time.
What
yes,
movie is it?
thank you.
That was Michael Keaton in Beetlejuice.
Well, what movie was he talking about? The Exorcist?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Exorcist, yeah.
Okay.
I've seen The Exorcist 167 times and it keeps getting funnier every time.
Thank you, Vincent. I knew somebody would have the answer. So let's end this because I know that it's been a long day for most of us, including myself sitting in this chair. But thank you so much, JD. I really appreciate it. You did a fantastic job. It's a nice way to end the event for today. And all of these are going to be on video later. So give me about a week. I'm going to remove the spotlight on you guys. All right, guys. So we're winding it up now. That was so much fun. Every time we do one of these things, one of these events, that wasn't me. This is the second time we've had online SkeptiCAMP. It is I hope it's the last time that we are forced to do this. I really want to do Monterey County SkeptiCAMP in person, but I can see doing these events again in the future because it's so fun to have people from all over the world who would never be able to come out to Monterey to attend a SkeptiCAMP. I really think that these are important to be able to bring people from all over the world to on such a diverse set of topics. And boy, we had a diverse set of topics today, that's for sure. So announcements are that there's a lot of different events coming up. You can visit, I just got a notice from Oregonians for Science and Reason. I always say it wrong. I'm sorry, Janine. It's going to have a meetup. Your local meetup groups, join local meetup groups because there's almost always some kind of event that you can go and visit and hang out and talk to people. Same online as in real person. Some places are actually doing real in-person talks. I will have these videos up probably this week. It's going to be on our About Time channel, and I put the link in the chat if you want to look at that. I believe if you want to copy the chat, if there was something that was said earlier today and you couldn't quite remember what it was, but you'd like to have it, those three dots at the bottom, I believe you can copy the chat, and that way when I hang up this, you'll be able to actually see the chat. Go back and look at some of the links that were put in. Also, I will mention that we are, thank you people who have donated. I really appreciate that. It makes me, like I say, want to put more events on. And if you're interested in doing that, we also have a Facebook donate area. There's still fees. They got to get their money. So Facebook, I put a link to that also in the chat, and our donate for PayPal that's on our website. I put that in the chat, and I will put these on our YouTube channel whenever these videos come out. Thank you so much to Deborah and Adrian, who were my helpers today. They stayed the whole day, and they were blocking people left and right and banning people. No, we didn't have any problems at all. And we really had very few technical issues. I mean, I guess I'd have to go back and look, but I'm not thinking that we had very many. So if you want to put on your own SkeptiCAMP with your group, and you're asked and you need help, I'm happy to help you out. It's not as complicated as you think. And finding speakers is fun. All the speakers we had today would probably be happy to do the same talk, other talks, or to speak to your group. So please contact them. And I think everybody has their contact information on our website on the schedule for today. And there's books they've written, and there's all sorts of things that they have done. Please check them out. And Thursday nights, we have social trivia by Susan. You can find it on my Facebook page. Please come and join us. We've been doing it 88 times. I think we just had our 88th game. We have never missed a Thursday, including on Thanksgiving Day and New Year's Day, and all that. We always keep going. There's about 30 people who consistently show up. It fluctuates who they are, but most of them are skeptics. And yeah, the Facebook page, let me put that in here really quick because I got to put my glasses on if I'm going to read it at a distance. Our Facebook page is right here. I'm going to put the link back into our the chat. See, every time it just goes away. You guys don't realize I've got all these screens open, but if I click on something, they go away. So I just put the link to our Facebook account. Again, it's called About Time Project, and our YouTube channel, I think I also put in there as well. And there are talks. I'm going to be giving a talk to the Commonwealth Club on Monday about Operation Onion Ring. And I believe the Commonwealth Club, you have to join it to be able to watch the video, watch the talk live. It's 2:30 in California time, but within a very short time, they're going to put it up on the YouTube channel. So that is going to be only the second time I've talked about Operation Onion Ring, which is something JD talked about not so long ago. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions or anything I got to address. Adrian produces a great SkeptiCAMP for the Atheist Society of Calgary several months ago. I'm going to ask her to do another. Yeah. Adrian is going, oh dear, I just got volunteered for it again, and said, ha ha ha. So we could do a lot of these, you guys. I'm telling you, there's so much talent in our community, so much talent, so many great stories. They're all out there. We just got to get them, you know, into a nice format, get them out and do it. And if it's something that you're interested in doing and you need a little help or you want some feedback, I'm happy to help. Bay Area Skeptics is doing a virtual Skeptics in the Pub on Wednesday. It's casual. You don't have to wear pants. I mean, I think Jay Diamond never wears any pants. That's what I've been told. It's on Zoom. And that's, he put a link in there. And Jan asked how you say the chat. I believe you hit the, yeah. So if you go to the chat box at the very bottom, there's 3 little dots. It says, if you click on it, it says more. And the first, and what you do is you hit the first thing on there. It says save chat, and that will save all your chat. And I've never done it, so I don't know where it saves it at, but I'm stalling a little bit before I end this so that you guys can go over there and you can end the chat. Thank you, Karen. And Jay Diamond did assure everybody that it's a requirement to show up to the Bay Area Skeptics Zoom chat pantless. That's, I think, a requirement, or skirtless, or whatever they say. And is that all I have in here? Oh, the link to trivia. So Social Trivia by Susan is what it's called. And let me get the link to that. That's going to be on Thursday. We start California time. We have a social at 6, and then it goes late. You do not have to stay the whole time. Oops. I must be hungry. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. I can't imagine that happening, hitting the wrong buttons. I got to go back and I got to open chat again for here. And that is an event. And there's videos on my personal YouTube site for that. Okay, next Thursday, Bay Area Skeptics presents Skeptic Talk, Weirdness. What fake science and the paranormal tell us about the nature of science, by Tanner Eads. Oh yeah, so that's going to be out. I only watch these, sorry, because I'm doing trivia on Thursday, but I watch the video afterwards. I subscribe to their channel and watch them afterwards. And I suppose you can watch that video panelist too. Okay, so Lois says she always saves the chat. It'll create a Zoom file, which has all the chats, if you want to know what's in there.
You just have to click the little 3 dots to the far right in the text entry field in the chat, and it says save chat.
Yep, that's all I got to do. Is it counter programming? All right, so 5:08. I think we did really good today. We were on time. This was fun. I enjoyed myself. So it's so great to see you guys. And I'm going to end this because it's going to take about 3 hours to format the video before I can even go on that.
Thanks for organizing it all. Take care, Susan.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you guys. It was
Susan.
fun. It was so much fun. Thank you all of those speakers. They were great. I really, really learned a lot and it was so much fun. So
Thanks,
I'm gonna
everybody. Thanks, Susan.
Bye. Thanks, Susan.
bye guys. Go ahead. Everybody say thank you if you want to say thank you before I cut somebody off and I feel stupid for cutting them off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really loved it. It was really what I needed.
Oh, thank
Thanks,
you.
Tracy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you guys. Yeah, I love doing this. I love being around you guys.
See you tomorrow, Adrian.
Yes, we'll see you tomorrow.
So Susan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, I just drove all the way from San Francisco to LA and listening.
Really?
For the way.
Oh, how fun, Lori. You dropped out a couple times. I saw I had to put you back in a couple
I
times.
know, that's because I had to get out and go to the bathroom or something like that. You
Well, you
know?
can go to the bathroom in the car. Nobody cares. We're not watching. Is there somebody in the car with you?
No, just me.
Okay.
Oh, so we got to go to LA with her. We got to go on a drive with her.
I know,
6:50 showing.
going down to see my grandkids.
That is
All
super
right.
cool. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Hasta luego.